to Representative Brooks and Representative Evans. Lost you there for a minute. We could not be more grateful for their leadership and their help in getting us to this point. Representative Brooks was the lead sponsor of Arkansas Learns, Representative Evans, the chair of the Education Committee, and we spent months and months, probably a lot more hours than they would have liked, with us, working diligently to produce what we think is the best, most comprehensive education reform package, certainly in our state, probably anywhere in the country. And I think the final product is something we can all be really proud of. We have a number of our other state senators and representatives. If you guys don't mind just standing up real quick, there are quite a few here in the room, and we're a critical part of helping this get done. Ricky Hill, who is from right here, I know most of you guys know him, very thankful for his leadership, not just on this, but across the board. Senator Davis was our Senate co-sponsor along with Representative Brooks, and a college buddy of mine. We were both at Ouachita together, and she had to participate whether she liked it or not, but was an incredible lead and really did a phenomenal job, and has 4 kids and such a big passion for both of us as parents. Mr. Lynch here did a great job leading us through. We have, again, just an incredible team here on the ground, and so thankful for all of their leadership and help to get this passed. Like I said, we think Arkansas Learns is one of the best, strongest pieces of education legislation, certainly anywhere in the state, maybe anywhere in the country, because it does a handful of things that we're really proud of. First, it prioritizes students. It helps make sure that the #1 goal and #1 priority is seeing our students succeed. We have to flip the script. Unfortunately for us, what we've been doing for far too long has not been working. We have some of the best and brightest teachers anywhere in the country, some of the most dedicated parents, some of the smartest students, and yet we still are not meeting the most basic benchmarks across the board. Arkansas continues to rank at the bottom. And to me, that's unacceptable. And I think for most of us, it is unacceptable because we know that we are capable of doing better. We know that we are capable of being in that top 5. And that's why we spent so much time focusing on how do we move our state and our students to the very top. And I think through Arkansas Learns, we're going to accomplish that because we focused on things like incentivizing and bringing respect to our teachers. Like I said, we have some of the very best teachers anywhere that you will find in the country right here in Arkansas. And we need to reward them. We need to let them know how much we value them and their dedication to teaching by going from the bottom of teacher pay to the very top in the country. That's a big deal for a small state like Arkansas to be competitive with every other state in the country. If you adjust our teacher pay for cost of living, we actually go to #1. That is unbelievable for us and such a great thing to bring respect and show the value that we have on the amazing teachers that are spending their time and their days in the classroom. We also wanted to focus on empowering our parents. The best control is the most local control. So putting the power into the most local hands possible, the power of the parents, is one of the best things that we can do for student success and student outcome. Allowing parents to have more say into their kids' education is never going to be a bad thing. That's a positive. Parents are spending all day, every day with their kids and know best how and where they can be educated. What works for every student is not always going to be the same. I'm a mom, I have 3 kids. And just in my home, I know that all 3 of my kids need very different things. And so making sure I have the ability to put them on the path that is going to help them best be successful is critically important. Making sure we have accountability in the process and in the system. Having standards that meet what our state needs and are achievable for our students and for our teachers and districts. Those are some of the things we really focused on. One of the biggest pieces that I think that is often left out of the conversation when it comes to Arkansas Learns is the focus on career readiness. We know that the point and purpose of education in large part is to help prepare those students for the workforce, to get them ready to go into the workforce when they either graduate from high school or a 4-year university or a 2-year program or a trade or vocational program, is when they are finished with their education, are they ready to go into the workforce? And if the answer to that is no, then frankly, we haven't done our jobs. And for too long, we have focused only on what does a student know and not what is a student capable of doing. And I think we are flipping the script and focusing on what are students capable of doing when they finish school and step into the workforce. I'm really proud of how this piece of legislation has turned out. Is it perfect? No. No piece of legislation will ever be perfect. But it is a great starting place. It is absolutely critical if we want to see something different in our state to do something radically different than what we've been doing. Because what we've been doing is not good enough for the students that are growing up in Arkansas. I want to see my kids, and I want to see every child in the state of Arkansas on a path to success. And I think this helps give us a much greater foundation and investment in all the right places. Thank you so much for each of you for taking time out of your very busy schedules for showing up today. I know we have a lot of parents, administrators, teachers that are in the room, and Secretary Oliva and I look forward to taking your questions. This is an important part of the process, making sure people have all the accurate information that exists, and we want to take questions from as many of you as possible, and we'll work very hard to get around the room as quickly as we can. Thank you all so much again for being here, and with that, I'll turn it over to Secretary Oliva.
Sure. Thank you, Governor Sanders, and thank you, everybody, for joining us as well. And it's great to be here in Cabot. It's actually impressive to see that we got folks standing around. So as someone that's kind of relatively new to the state, I get to meet superintendents all the time, and I see some superintendents and school board members here. But some of the superintendents did a lot of homework on me before I got here, and it was really neat when I met the superintendent in Cabot, because he knew that I was going to ask about different programs for opportunities for students, and I always wanted to know how is band and how's the bowling team. So it's really nice. I don't know if you know this, Governor Sanders, to be in the county that has, I think, the largest marching band out of any high school in the state of Arkansas, and the 21-time state champions in bowling, which is kind of a big deal. So I'm like, it's a little starstruck to be right here in your community. So I appreciate.
This is Secretary Oliva begging for an invitation to come bowl with the students.
Yes, so. I'm just throwing out those little pieces. So, but we're excited to engage in a conversation and dialogue today. And when you look at this innovative, comprehensive approach about aligning systems, it really touches everything I like to say from cradle to career. Recently, U.S. News and World's reports came out with their state rankings about 2 weeks ago, and everybody has their own methodologies to look at how well they evaluate an education system. And their methodology looks at everything from early learning, K-12, and post-secondary. And Arkansas ranked 43. And I think a lot of people would agree there's enough talent and resources and passion in the state to do a little bit better. And everything that you look at, what are those metrics or those methodologies for how are we going to evaluate education, we're addressing through the LEARNS priority and the LEARNS initiative. So being able to work with the legislature about taking a blueprint and turning some ideas into policy is something that we acted with urgency on, because our students are only in third grade once. Our students only have one senior year of high school. They're only entering kindergarten once, and we got to work as diligently as we can and act with urgency to get these pieces right, because time is of the essence. So once the bill was signed into the law, we made a commitment as an agency to meet with just about every superintendent, which we've done through the educational cooperatives. There's 15 educational cooperatives throughout the state. Went to every region throughout all of Arkansas to see firsthand and listen firsthand with district leaders and teachers and administrators on what can we do to help support implementation, because getting the policy across the finish line is step one, but now that we work on implementation and crafting rules, and we want to do that in a clear and transparent manner on how we're going to implement everything so that we can support and align a fragmented system. When I was able to report on how those conversations went to the governor, I was like, it was really helpful just to get in the room and hear the questions and be able to answer firsthand and clear up any misinformation. And I think it was based on that feedback that we decided to do some town halls, because there's still a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of wonders on why we're doing what we're doing. So I'm excited to be able to be here today and answer any questions. And as Governor Sanders stated, this isn't the finish line. We're going to continue working on additional policy and additional roles to continue to get it right. So this helps shape that dialogue and narrative.
Great. Representative Brooks, Representative Evans, I think we'll kick it to you to start us off with a couple of questions, and we'll open it up to the room.
Okay, we have a few questions that have been submitted, and so if Mr. Butch Rice, are you in here? Mr. Rice. Hello,
Butch.
Governor.
Hello.
Let me bring you the microphone here.
Sure. Thank you, Governor, for putting education first in Arkansas. We needed that, and thank you for what you're doing. My question today, as a former school board member at BB, I serve on a board for Liberty Christian School in Searcy. I serve on the board and proudly serve on the ASU BB board, advisory board, and our Chancellor, Dr. Methvin, is here today. But my question goes a little bit different route. My question is, for the students that do not elect to go to a higher education institute, once they decide they want to go to the workforce, they want to go to a trade school, they want to see what avenues they have there, how does the LEARNS Act help these students?
Great. Thank you so much, Butch. We appreciate it. A couple things. One, I think for far too long we pushed this idea to so many students and frankly to parents as well, that if kids didn't go to a 4-year university, then somehow they were less than. And frankly, nothing could be further from the truth. There is a huge demand for students going directly into the workforce or having some trade or vocational training and then being able to go to the workforce. One of the things that LEARNS does is we created a dual diploma track so that students can start getting certifications while they're in high school and immediately go into the workforce upon graduation. This has the potential to help so many young people go into a career track right away. And that's not the end. That can be something where they get that certification, they go into the workforce, and then if they decide to go back to a 2-year school or a 4-year school from there, they can build on top of that. Secretary Oliva has a great analogy that I'll let him walk through on how we envision that working, but it's such a critical thing for students to have multiple options for a lifetime of success. And if we only paint one picture, every student's not going to fit into that. And so creating that dual diploma track, helping those students get certifications while they're in high school so that they can go directly into the workforce was a big priority. And you know, one of the things that we have seen across the state is there are some amazing programs that you have where a local business and a community has partnered with a high school and they're building their own workforce. Unfortunately, that's the exception. It's not the rule. And we want that to be commonplace across the state of Arkansas. One of the other things we did was create a workforce cabinet where we brought all of the state agencies that have a workforce component to the table to meet to address the workforce shortage. It didn't matter where I was traveling in the state, didn't matter what type of business leader I was meeting with. The number one thing that we heard from business owners and community leaders was that they couldn't find the skilled, qualified workers that they need fast enough. So by helping address that shortage, by looking and taking kind of a whole of government approach at how we do a better job preparing our students for the workforce and the workforce that exists today, not the one that existed 10, 20, 30 years ago, but the one that we have right now in front of us and 10 years ahead. Bringing all those players to the table, making sure that it's not just government, it's not just education, it's not just the business leaders, it's everybody sitting at the table working together to help these students get on that pathway. And so that was what we've really been focused on and leaning into. And Secretary Oliva, I'd love you to give your analogy in a little more detail. I didn't want to steal his thunder because it's really his, but go ahead.
So thank you for your service and for serving on so many boards and so many different capacities and showing an interest in this. But as Governor Sanders said, the highway to success in life doesn't end in university after high school for every student. So as you kind of map out that highway, it's about building opportunities with multiple exit ramps and on-ramps. And Many students realize where they want to go at different phases while they're in school. Some realize where they want to go and pursue post-secondary opportunities years beyond leaving high school. And I can tell you what's exciting about Learns, as we talked about with adding a career track dual diploma for high school, is that it's really asking us to kind of evaluate our system. So early in Governor Sanders' tenure, signed an executive order that tasked our agency, and the reason I know this is because the report's due in like a couple of weeks, so we're working on this to find out what are these high skill opportunities that students can get while they're in high school. Do they have opportunities to complete a program that leads to a credential of value or an industry certification? So we're conducting that audit, and we're in the finalized process of that. But I can tell you what I think is what's great about the Learns initiative, not just with the dual high school diploma, is it really starts looking at what are students being exposed to while they're in middle school. And I can tell you, as a former high school principal, I was a high school principal, and we used to do what a lot of high schools do, probably right here, even in this community, all across the United States, and have what they call freshman orientation night, where you put in all the programs and all the opportunities in a high school, and all the families come in and see if they want to sign up for ROTC or band or sports or whatever it is, and learn about all the programs at the high school. And something which is a great event, but something that used to frustrate me as a former high school principal is the amount of students that I would talk to at freshman orientation that had no idea where they wanted to be in 4 short years. And the reality is if you haven't started having those conversations before freshman orientation night, you close some doors. If you haven't taken certain math and certain world language requirements while in middle school, you've closed doors before you got to high school. So part of Learns that a lot of people don't talk about is really focusing on those college and career readiness conversations while they're in middle school, and working with educators to help the students and families map out that plan so that when they show up to freshman orientation night, they're already on that highway and they know where they want to go and where they want to be.
Great. You have one
Yeah,
more?
Governor, we had a question sent in advance from Pam Wilson. She's sitting right here. Ms. Wilson, want to ask you a question?
What assessment or measure are we going to be using to determine if our students are ready in 3rd grade and to deem proficient for moving on?
Great. He's on a water break, but I thought maybe you just abandoned me in the middle of this.
Give me the assessment question.
Yeah, I'd love for you to walk through kind of the process of where we are right now and what that looks like moving forward as we go into the fall of next year's school.
Sure. So excellent question. And there's some certain state and federal requirements that says you have to measure certain subjects and certain grade levels in order to meet certain reporting elements and programs. So one of the things that I think is great about Learns is it's taking a space that's not part of those federal requirements and giving us the ability to unify and coordinate it, starting with kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. So right now, every district, and we call this progress monitoring, and students participate kind of in those little snapshots of time to see how they're doing, and gives data back to teachers so that they can pivot and inform instruction to be more focused on what the child needs. But when we talk about building in that early literacy rate and trying to see the number of students performing or reading at or above grade level in 3rd grade, we know that we have a lot of work to do. So we're investing heavily by providing those additional supports. And part of those supports is being able to give everybody clear and accurate data. Right now, every district has their own progress monitoring tool. Everybody uses it, but they don't all talk to each other. And the data we get back is kind of sporadic and all over the place based on what are the assessments that they're using. On top of that, we require dyslexia screening, which is important to identify students that may need additional supports. Early intervention, we know, is the best path forward for making sure that students can fill those gaps in their learning. Those are different assessments, and they're different based on all the districts. So we're going to put forth a vision where everything is coordinated and all of the assessments are embedded, so that the snapshot in time only happens 2 or 3, maybe 4 times a year. Right now, it's happening 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10 or more times a year, depending on what the district does. So we want to get good data back into teachers' hands so that they can have the information to inform instruction. But in the 3 through 10 space, currently, we're actually just finished, the assessment window closed last week, the last round of assessment in 3 through 10 for English language arts, math, and science using an assessment called the ACT Aspire. And that is a college and career readiness assessment. And we were in the process of putting a new assessment in place that will hit the schools in the spring of 2024 for this upcoming school year. That's going to be what we call a criterion referenced assessment, where it's not going to be a college and readiness predictor, but it's going to be a measure of, did the student learn what we expected to learn at each grade level? And that assessment is being written as we speak right now, because we're using Arkansas educators and Arkansas experts from all across the state to write the test items based on the new English language arts and mathematics standards that were recently adopted, so that the systems are aligned. And when we have aligned systems from standards to curriculum and assessment, we know we're going to see better outcomes. Right now, currently, it's fragmented and everything is looking at measuring something different, and it's confusing for teachers, parents, and school leaders. So we're going to create a vision where all of those talk to each other and everything is streamlined.
Great. Thank you, Sir Turley. I think at this point we're happy to open up. If anybody out here in the crowd has questions, feel free to just raise your hand and someone will come around and bring a microphone and we will do our best to address them. Yes, sir.
Hi, Governor. My name is Mac Faulkner, and to me, it seems to me Arkansas is about to miss an incredible opportunity if the LEARNS Act were not implemented at this time. Some of the nation's brightest and finest are leaving New York, California, for Florida, and other places, and it's hard to get people like that to consider leaving their home place. But with the LEARNS Act, it would seem to me that it would make us a very attractive place for them to settle and to help native Arkansans with the things that these people can bring to the state in business, commerce, new jobs. It seems to me this would elevate the whole state rapidly. And to me, the urgency of the LEARNS Act, the timing is now for it to take advantage of that.
Well, I don't disagree with anything, so we're already off to a very good start. I knew I liked you right there on the front row from the beginning. I couldn't agree more. I think that there is no greater investment that we can make as a state than in education. And that's why we made this the #1 priority, not just of this legislative session. Frankly, I made it the #1 priority of my campaign, made it the #1 thing that I want to focus on, hopefully as Arkansas's governor for the next 8 years. Because there is no greater place that we can see our dollars invested with a great return. The long-term success of our students, frankly, determines the long-term success of our state. If we don't do a better job making sure our teachers have the resources, training, and pay that they need, if our students aren't getting the education that they need, and our parents aren't getting what they need from our education system, frankly, we're failing. And we have to do a better job. And that's why making this such a priority is so important. Not just because we want to recruit new people in, but frankly, we want to keep our best and brightest at home. We want to keep our best teachers in the classroom. We want to keep our best students here, going to our universities, going into our workforce, not leaving for other places. And we know that one of the most important things that other companies and families look at when making a determination about whether or not they want to relocate to another state is, do they have a good education system? And right now, the answer we get a lot is that we're not quite meeting what they need. Whether it's a family or a business that wants to come to Arkansas. Now, that doesn't mean that we haven't had a lot of people that look in different communities and see exactly what they're looking for. But as a whole, as a state, we can and must do better. And that's why we made this such a huge priority, and I'm really proud of where we've landed right now. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My name is Jordan Barnett. I'm a 2023 graduate of Conway Christian. I was very looking forward to meeting you today. We met last week as you presented the governor's distinguished scholarship to me. My question, I had two that were sort of similar, was regarding private education. So as I understand it, private schools can opt in, opt out to allowing students to attend them through government funding. If they accept that government money, would schools like mine have to remove religion from our curriculums?
Sure, it's a great question. I think one of the most important things is that a school has the ability to decide whether or not they opt into the Educational Freedom Account program. With that, they're not required to remove anything, but they are required to have standardized testing that I'll let Secretary Oliva go into a little bit more detail on, because we have to have accountability. We can't put money into a system where we don't have accountability. And I think one thing that is really important in this process, we're not giving checks over to students, but the payment would go directly to the school, and making sure, again, that they meet those standards. I think one of the other concerns that we've had from people is that somebody could just open up a school and immediately start accepting funding from the state. Not accurate. They have to go through the process. Charter school, for instance, it takes 3 years to go through and have that accreditation, and they would also still have to meet the same standards that you would find in a public school. Homeschool families, same thing. They are able to opt into the program, certainly not required by the state to do so, but if they do, they have to meet a certain standard in order to be part of the program. Thank you, and congratulations on graduating. What's next?
4 years at Arkansas Tech, security and
Wonderful. Be careful. What you wish for being a lawyer, you never know. Very proud. That's amazing. We're glad you're staying in Arkansas, too. Yes, ma'am.
How much of the private tuition would the schools get?
Well, it's based on the foundation funding. Jacob, I don't know if you want to go into a bit more detail. Also, I skipped over letting you answer part of that question, too. But it would not be 100%. It's a 90% of the foundation funding that would be received. Right now, it's roughly about $7,300 per student that would follow those students for that school. However, there are certain schools where it doesn't cost that much to attend, and so it wouldn't be the full amount that would go for that student.
Well, so maybe I can add a little bit to both. We know that a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work for every child and for every family. But it's important to remember the priority of the LEARNS initiative is to invest in improving the local public school. This is initiatives to support public education. And by investing in giving struggling schools and struggling school districts access to additional resources, we're going to see that improve. There is value in making sure that the neighborhood schools, where children become friends with the children in their community, can attend school and grow up together. And a lot of times you see multiple generations of families doing just that. That happens in the neighborhood public school. But sometimes that option doesn't meet the need of certain individuals or certain families. So we want to create choice opportunities. But those choice opportunities have to be of high quality. We're not going to create choice just to have choice options. We're going to make sure that when families are looking at using some of those educational opportunities that are now available to them, that we're able to be able to report on how well those schools are doing and how well those choice educational opportunities are. So the way the scholarship funding is formulated, right now the foundation funding for a student, I'm just going to use round numbers, I don't have exact numbers in front of me, say is about $7,000 a student. But then they get additional funding that goes to a school district through what's called a matrix and different categoricals, and that could go up to over $12,000 a student. What the families are eligible for to participate, if they choose to participate in a scholarship opportunity for a private school, is 90% of that foundation funding. So all the remaining funding for categoricals, and the difference remains with the school district. So this doesn't take away resources from the school district. This just empowers parents to have a seat at the table on where they want their children to be able to participate and go on.
We have one right here.
I just want to thank you for this opportunity to ask this question. So I have two children. One is in regular education and one's special needs. So what does this bill do for students like my daughter in her future? So.
Sure. I think first of all, thank you for being here and for your question. I think your family situation perfectly illustrates the need that we have for legislation like LEARNS, is that it empowers you as a parent to decide that the pathway for one of your kids may be different than the other, and opens up choice and opportunity so that if your needs are not being met and your child's needs are not being met at one school, it opens up the opportunity for you to look at other options that may be available that can meet those needs. Again, you don't want to take anything away, but every child has the ability to learn in the right place. And we want to make sure that those students have every opportunity available. I think Secretary Oliva has a unique perspective. He started off as a special education teacher in the classroom. And Senator Davis, I don't know if you want to comment, or one of our representatives who helped and worked very closely on this bill and were part of its, all the different pieces have some unique perspective to offer as well, that I would love if they're willing to open up and share a little bit about some of the things that were really important for them to see included, specifically for families like yours.
And if I was to add to that, and thank you for sharing and being vulnerable, and when you look at students that have unique abilities or different needs, there's a big spectrum of services that each child may need based individually on their educational plan. But one thing that I think the literature and the research would tell us, the sooner that we can identify a student that has unique abilities or needs additional layer supports and be able to provide those interventions as necessary, the long-term outcomes increases significantly for that student to be successful not only in school but to participate in post-secondary opportunities as well. So one of the things that LEARNS does that we don't often it gets a little bit overlooked, is it's really taking a fragmented, uncoordinated early learning environment and streamlining that all into one agency. So when you look at access to quality child care programs, even special education, early identified programs for students that can qualify for services as early as 3 and 4 years old, depending on who funds that program currently depends on which agency and which division oversees those programs. And everybody has a different definition of what that intervention looks like, or what is a high quality program, or what is the access that needs to be available. So part of LEARNS, and we're in this transition because our calendar year in education is different than a typical calendar year. So July 1 is when our calendar years flip, to get all of these systems unified and coordinated under one agency, under the Department of Education, but July 1, so that we can develop programs around students and not systems based on what the student needs. And there's a reality, because we were asked early in Governor Sanders' tenure to kind of do a heat map across the state to identify if there's deserts or islands that exist for parents that want to participate in early high-quality child care programs, and the reality is they do. So as we're building out kind of that dashboard and identifying where we need to maybe work with school districts or cooperatives or civic organizations, faith-based organizations to provide access to high-quality early childhood interventions or supports or learning environments, we're going to continue to build that to scale. And to the question about special education, I think this really helps support students that need additional support in the classroom by getting access to early intervention environments sooner, as well as make sure that every child has access to grade level instruction that they deserve, because that's when we're going to see those students rise and excel.
And to just quick follow up on that, if you don't mind. So a couple things specific to LEARNS. Right now, we know that with special education, a lot of children may have IEPs on individualized education plans. Right now we have the Succeed Scholarship, which catches a few kids, but it's limited in scope from the standpoint of budgetary. What LEARNS does is it's the first year it makes those children available for the Education Freedom Accounts immediately. And so that broadens the opportunity for children who may have specific learning disabilities. I'm a dad who has a child who's at a different school than his other kids, and So I certainly understand the challenges that are there from a family's perspective. And so that's one thing. The other thing, as Secretary Leva commented, is that focus, high impact focus on K through 3 literacy. When we look at the challenges that we know that if we can identify struggling readers early on, and perhaps they're dyslexic, and as a legislature, as a state, we've put a lot of emphasis on that the last 6 or 7 years, and I think we're getting better at what we do. But Learns really takes that to the forefront and says that there is the ultimate importance on children learning how to read, and we're going to throw everything at it that we possibly can. And so that is very impactful for children who may have a specific learning disability as well, to identify that early.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for coming and giving us this opportunity today. I have a two-part question. As a retired administrator with 33 years in education, when the Learns Act came through, I had teachers blowing up my phone. The first one is they're worried about the budget for transporting students to schools of their choice. And I, as from looking over budgets for years, I understand that school districts' budgets are very tight, and to open up a transportation budget to meet the needs of those students is going to be a little bit difficult. The second part of my question is the teachers that were blowing up my phones, sadly, are very, very good teachers who I would recommend for anything. They go above and beyond for their students. But their concern was the Teacher Fair Dismissal Act. It wasn't the teacher blowing up my phone that should be concerned about the Fair Teacher Dismissal Act, but the ones who really go above and beyond for their kids, and they want to know where they stand with that.
Sure. I'll take the first part and then let Secretary Leva add. I'm going to answer the second question first. When it comes to teacher fair dismissal, I think you kind of helped make the point. The teachers who have nothing to worry about still have nothing to worry about. We are not removing due process from a teacher's ability to stay in the classroom. We certainly don't want our best, our brightest, those who you're talking about that go above and beyond, which is by and large the vast majority of our teachers. We have, like I said, some of the most amazing educators right here in the state of Arkansas, and we don't want to impact those people. However, if there is somebody who would do better in another career path, then we may want to help them find it. But no one will have the right to due process removed, and those things will be held and decided at the local level. And those teachers will still be able to continue and remain in the classroom exactly like we would want them to be. But if there is a teacher that has created issues or regular problems, like I said, maybe another career path would be a better option. There will be a process for that makes it a little bit easier to walk down that path, but certainly would never want to take away an educator's due process and ability to stay in the classroom. Do you want to jump on that, and then we'll come back to the transportation question?
So thank you for 33 years in education. You've seen a lot of probably initiatives come and go and experienced a lot. To that point, in my experience, and you may have experienced this as well, is good teachers will follow good principals anywhere. So not only do we want to support our good teachers and educators, but we also want to invest in coaching and training for principals. And if principals are doing their job and providing explicit feedback and engaging in that kind of continuous improvement cycle with educators, we're going to see student outcomes grow as teachers hone in on and develop their skills. I would say if a teacher's doing a good job, to echo some of the comments, they don't have anything to worry about. Principals and superintendents need high-quality teachers. The research is very clear. The number one indicator of a student being successful in school is the teacher standing in front of that classroom. So we will go out of our way to remove any barriers or do whatever, any obstacles to keep these highly effective, impacted teachers in front of our students. The reality is unfortunately, there's some bad actors in this space or ineffective teachers that are harming education for students. And we can't get caught up in bureaucracy to get that person removed out of the classroom. We need to get them out as swiftly and efficiently as we can.
I've gone through that process with both big information to try to get rid of a very harmful teacher, but
In fact, the very first week that Secretary Oliva, I guess, and I were both on the job, but that you were in the state, we did a school tour and sat down with superintendents, principals, teachers from kind of a vast area in the Delta, and that was one of the things that they raised. One of the reasons this is included in the legislation was directly from a stakeholder meeting of where this had become a problem and an inability to remove some of those ineffective teachers while at the same time providing protections for our best teachers. Second, transportation.
Oh,
We did provide additional funding in the LEARNS legislation for transportation grants for people to be able to apply for to help alleviate some of those concerns and to provide additional resources to help move students as needed.
If I was to add to that, I've heard Governor Sanders talk about this too, but there's also opportunity to maybe even reimagine transportation with the way we've always historically done it. School buses aren't getting any cheaper. The cost of diesel fuel is not going any lower. So being able to provide these innovative grants may spur some ideas that we can scale. And I think you say it best when I've heard you say that we're one of the best states in logistics. Like,
we have the leading logistics companies, not just in the state or in the country, anywhere in the world right here. We should be utilizing some of our homegrown resources and talent. One of the biggest industries we have is trucking. That's a logistics operation. And it's moving, it's transporting from all of the resources we have. We know we can do it better. So looking for some of those innovative ideas through the transportation grants. Why take a full-size, massive school bus when a van might do the trick? And it helps alleviate some of the costs, also makes it much more efficient, relieves some of the burden on the districts, cuts down some of the wait times for students riding. And if we can look at some of the innovative ways, I think there is a lot of opportunity there for Arkansas, frankly, to do something that no state has yet figured out, and that is through doing a much better job of transporting students to and from school. Jacob, there's one behind
you. I'm also a retired teacher, 30 years of teaching, partly in Louisiana and partly here in Arkansas.
We're glad you wised up and moved north. So.
Well, Katrina had a little something to do with that. But I'm also a grandmother of 8 children, and several of which are in the Cabot School District. My question is, you mentioned teacher resources and training availability that the LEARNS Act you hope to provide to the school systems. Could you please expand more upon that? Like, how will you determine what type of training is needed? We have teacher preparation programs in all the universities when teachers get their degrees and their training, and I myself hold 5 certifications in different areas, so a lot of training there. So how will you target what training is needed? How will you determine what amount of funds is needed to go towards that training? How will that training occur or take place? Have you thought all that out through your LEARNS Act?
You want to go first?
So thank you for 33 years in the classroom. I don't know if you're a principal here, maybe you guys work together, I'm not really sure, but I think that's an excellent question, and what we're doing with LEARNS to determine that training is we're looking at data. We're able to provide school districts and leaders with the evidence of student performance, not to be punitive, to look for opportunities, because when you can actually track student performance and look at different levels of data on students on how they're learning and use some of that diagnostic, it engages in that conversation about, well, maybe you need some more explicit training. We're doubling down. This state has made a commitment to making sure that every classroom and every educator is trained in the science of reading. We have worked with our teacher preparation programs to embed that in their programs, so when they come out of those programs, the teachers are ready to go. When you look at getting this system aligned, we have adopted new ELA and math standards. We need to train educators on how those standards look like in practice. That's the foundation that we build all of instruction on. And then now we're working on getting high quality instructional materials aligned with those standards. So we're going to train teachers on how to utilize those materials that are aligned with these standards. And then teachers need to continually expand their toolkit to make sure that they're meeting the needs of the students that they serve. So we're going to continue to do that based on progress monitoring data, based on summative data that looks at patterns and identify opportunities. But then I also feel strongly that teachers should have a voice in the type of training that they need. Oftentimes, administration in the district office is just mandating training. That if someone's been in the classroom for 30 years, they've done the same training each and every single year. We need to stop wasting teachers' time with kind of some of those top-down mandated trainings. So look for teacher voice in developing and charting out their professional learning path. Also, we're adding, and you like to talk about the number of literacy coaches or access to reading coaches that are highly skilled that can provide mentoring and coaching to teachers as well.
Sure. First, thank you you look mighty good for 33 years in the classroom. Well done. But to echo on one of the things that Jacob said, we're not making these decisions based off of opinion, but off of data and fact. One of the things that you kind of identified is that as a state, we've actually have a significant amount of information. We just haven't been using a lot of it. For instance, one example that I love that you use pretty often is we have one teacher that every single year, year after year, has some of the highest achievement and growth for her students. She's in a difficult area, but year after year, she continues to perform. Number one, she didn't know that. Her students didn't know that. Her school, her district, no one had ever told her. And yet, we have one of these really high-performing teachers, and nobody slowed down to say, what is she doing right? What is working? She's got a tough demographic area, and yet she's continuing to succeed and perform year after year. So it's taking some of the data and information that we have and actually applying it to help our students and help our teachers. And I think that's another just good example. One of the other things we're doing through Arkansas Learns is helping put those students that you were talking about that are at the university in the classroom for the entire last year during their education. One, it helps provide another set of hands for teachers. Two, it helps those students who are about to become teachers have some direct, more hands-on experience and learn from somebody who has already been there and done what they're trying to go and do. Having that mentor, having somebody to help walk them through the process, and some of the things that may work on paper when you're learning at the university, when you're in a classroom, it's just going to feel and be different. And so being able to experience that firsthand and have somebody there to walk alongside you while you're doing it will help us give, again, greater resources and greater training to those teachers before they're on their own in the classroom. So looking for those types of opportunities is going to continue to be a priority. But thank you again for your time in the classroom. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions if we've got some right here.
I brought notes, Governor, just so I'd get it right.
That'll be the career ender, the last question with notes.
With notes, no, not long ones. I'm Vicki Parker, and the thing that really stood out to me was the empowerment, accountability, and the safety part of this. I love that. I love everything that I've heard you say today, but this question has to do with, as you know, we can teach our kids, educate our kids, but the social skills are so important. So my question is, in what ways will the Learns Act interfere or enhance our sexual risk avoidance education that is currently being taught in the schools across the state? As you may know, these deal with social skills, making good choices, just choosing the right friends, how to handle situations, and that's what this program really does. And so I'm just interested to know in what ways does this either interfere or enhance?
Sure. I think one of the things that I love about Learns that never gets included is the community service requirement for graduation. It is very often overlooked. Some people don't like it, but I think it is such an important piece of the legislation because it does exactly what you're talking about. It certainly enhances a student's experience. Obviously, there will be exceptions if people need it because they're working or have other barriers that prohibit them from engaging the community, but it does a number of things. One, it encourages the community to actually engage in the school that's in their backyard. It helps bring some of maybe unlikely allies to the table. A student who may not have a mentor or somebody to look up to, they can see somebody in their own backyard who has a success story, or somebody who can help walk them through maybe various things and serve as a mentor. It also helps them connect to a business, in some cases, a business in their community that could put them on a pathway to a career that they never knew was even available right there. Some of the other things gives them a great point of pride. If they are a student who may not have what they feel like is a lot to be proud of, knowing that they helped repaint the light poles in their downtown, and it's something they get to drive by every day and say, I did that. I was part of that. I gave something to my community that made it better. That is something that is so valuable for a student, for a young person, and helping them to engage with people in the community that they would never otherwise meet. May help get them an internship, again, a career, a number of other things that I think we're yet to see the true value of what can come of that. But I think it's one of the really important pieces of the legislation that helps certainly enhance community engagement, helps prepare these students in a better way, and creates, in some cases, could be another social engagement piece that they wouldn't have otherwise. Yeah. Exactly, and so a lot of students are spending their summers trying to make it up, and our Arkansas students will no longer have that, so thank you. Yes, sir, we'll let you be the last question.
I'm Dan Webb from Canada. I'd like to mention something about the goal of Learns. Now, they get through high school and they go, well, what am I going to do now? How about the National Guard? That, and you run that company. The big thing is they may go away for a couple of months. Bottom line is they're going to come home and work in their communities back home. All right, just thinking of the National Guard.
Absolutely. I think the more that we can engage our young people to love our country, appreciate those who have served to give it to us. Programs like our ROTC, I would love to see those grow and enhance in our high schools and across the state. I don't think that there is another career that we could encourage our students to engage in more that could be beneficial long term, certainly than our Guard. I'm a little biased, but I think Arkansas has some of the best, most unbelievable, dedicated guardsmen anywhere in the country. I've had the chance to see up close and personal a lot over the last month and a half after our state was heavily impacted by tornadoes that came through central Arkansas, this area, and into Wynne, Arkansas. Our Guard were some of the very first on the scene to help our citizens to step up, to serve, and would encourage any of our young people that could see that as a path to certainly step in and do that. So, and thank you, sir, for your service. We appreciate it. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I think it goes back to those pathways, and when you talk about Learns and creating opportunities, it's about giving people the skills they need to be successful in life, kind of what you're talking about. Beyond high school, earning a high school diploma is step one to people being successful in life, and we know we're not going to stop working until we get 100% of our students across that finish line. And some students may choose to go into the military, and oftentimes there's a very explicit set of skills that some of those individuals come back. So how can we identify who those individuals are and get them into the workforce so that they can give back to the community? But that's why it's an exit ramp and an on-ramp, because some people may join the military and go into college or university isn't at the forefront. Then they go and have those experiences and come back and want to get back on that education highway. Some people go straight to work right out of high school, and then they may earn some skills in trade, but it doesn't mean that educational highway is closed. It's about multiple exit ramps and on-ramps. And right now, our schools, our K-12 school districts do a lot of them do a really good job with making sure that students can complete kind of career technical education programs or even ROTC programs that will lead to credentials of value or industry certifications. And we want to make sure that those certifications articulate to institutions that if they choose to keep going through school, and we're going to codify that so that does that. So thank you.
Great. Well, I want to say thank you again to everybody for coming out and being part of today's event. I missed a couple of people earlier. Representative Cooper, I didn't see you. I thought everybody was sitting over here, and Senator Dismang, members of our legislature who do just a phenomenal job. We are so thankful for our partners in the legislature who helped us get this piece of legislation across the finish line to really change the way that we think about education here in the state and do everything possible to help put our students onto that pathway for long-term success. I'm confident that we are going to set the new standard here in the state of Arkansas. Instead of being at the bottom, I think we are going to slowly be climbing our way to the very top, and it's something that we can all be proud of. I want to say thank you so much to the teachers and the administrators and the educators that are here in the room. I can't tell you how much we appreciate the work that you do day in and day out. I think all of us had an appreciation for teachers, but during the pandemic, I think those of us who are parents who had to very quickly become homeschool parents and teachers, we found out just how hard your day is every single day and have a whole new appreciation. I found out that third grade math had gotten actually really hard since I had been there. As a parent, I found out that I was probably not cut out for the classroom. Managing my 3 was more than I could handle, and trying to manage the number of students that each of you have every day, I know is a truly heroic effort. And you are creating the next generation of leaders for our state. And we are so thankful for your dedication and the work and time that you put into the classroom and the investment that you make into our students. So thank you for your willingness to do that. And thank you to the parents who are here, who are advocating for their kids, who are making sure that their student gets to be successful. Parents who are stepping up and taking a hold of a microphone, frankly, in a way that our country has not seen in a long time. And I think it's a wonderful thing. We need more parents engaging in the process and being part of the conversation. And so we're thankful for your willingness to show up today. Like I said, Arkansas Learns is not a perfect piece of legislation, but we do think it is an incredibly good start to helping transform our state for the better so that we can have a generational impact on our students and see just the absolute level of success that we know our students are capable of here in Arkansas. So thank you for your willingness to be here. And with that, we will happily stick around and visit individually for a couple minutes if you have any other questions. Thank you all so much again for being here today.